Today, I'm going to talk about this Synthesis A40 Virtus amp. Now, out of all the gazillion tube integrated amps I've tried, this is my favorite. Is it because it is the most dynamic, most detailed, most airy, most whatever? Nope. The Cayin CS150 with its KT150 tubes is more dynamic. The Leben CS-300x I have here is more detailed, and the original Doge 10 is more airy. Look, when it comes to most high-performing gear, they usually do everything good enough, and the fact that one amp is better, let's say in bass slam, for example, than another is really not that big of a deal, because you're comparing like a 9 to a 9.5. Who cares? So when I listen to an amp, especially at this level, I usually focus on one or two things. The one thing is what I personally value the most in the system, and this Synthesis A40 has it. That makes it stand out from the crowd, so much so that it has become my favorite amp. Now, that one thing has something to do with the mid-range, and I will go into details later on. Objectively, if I were to evaluate this amp by scoring each component, such as 9 points for Soundstage, 8.5 points for instrument separation, and so forth, out of all my amps, it will not score the highest. But that's the thing about this hobby. In my opinion, it is not the one that scores the best or measures the best that is the best. Assuming all aspects, okay, be it a DAC, an amp, a speaker, reaches a certain similar level of performance within that group, there is no best. All a question of taste, and this amp is to my taste. Today, we are going to talk about the Synthesis A40 Tube Integrated Amp. Designed and built in Italy, this amp carries a price tag of 8,500 Canadian. I wonder how many years of instant noodles I have to eat to save up to buy this amp, because I am really tempted. Let me put the specs up here on screen, and the first thing that stood out to me was that it uses KT66 power tubes. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with tubes, most modern tube amps today that produces similar power uses either KT88 or EL34. In general, EL34 has better mids and KT88 have better low-end extension. It is actually my first time coming across an amp with KT66. So with 4 KT66, 212BH7 and 212AX7, the Synthesis produces 40 watts into 6 ohm. Is it an Italian thing to quote power in 6 ohms? I mean, I look at my units of research Simply Italy amp, same thing, 6 ohm. Why? Anyway, the unit is humongous and it weighs a back-breaking 35 kilogram, but that is usually a sign of quality in my book. At my age, I need my wife's help whenever I need to move it. So a tip who is about to take delivery of it, make sure you do the dishes, the laundry, vacuum the floor the night before, because you will need your significant other to help you move this amp. Now, the amp also comes with a decent dual mono USB SPDIF Willsenton DAC, and it upsamples to 192K/24-bit, and I did A/B test it against my own reference Exasound E28 DAC. Now, I prefer my Exasound E28, but if I really have to, I'm okay with this onboard DAC. So let's start by going over what you need to be aware of if you're interested in this amp. First, this amp takes a while to warm up, meaning you would want to turn it on for like 20 or 30 minutes before doing any serious listening. Man, that is so 80s. These days, man, I'm so used to the newer tube amps, like the Doge 10, it takes like 5 minutes to warm up. Second, remember, it is 40 watts into 6 ohm. So ideally, you want a super duper efficient speaker to get the best out of it. Sure, it will sound okay with less sensitive speakers, but when I have to eat a few months or years of instant noodles to save up for a system, I expect perfection, and I am super picky about it. You see, I spend most of my time with three speakers. The Silverline Sonata, rated at 93 dB efficiency, the modified Focal 836W, rated at 92 dB, and the Qacoustics Concept 500, rated at 90 dB. I noticed the most efficient speaker, the Silverline Sonata, felt the most effortless and open, especially at loud volume. Now don't get me wrong, with the least efficient 90 dB Qacoustics Concept 500, it did still sound good. Actually very good. But ideally, I would love to get the bigger brother, the Synthesis A100 Titan, that outputs 100 watt to try with the Concept 500. That one, however, yeah, I would need to win the lottery ticket to be able to afford it. My friend, whom I will call Mr. Quad, because he owns a pair of Quad, did try it with his not so efficient 86 dB Quad 2905. Mr. Quad and Mr. DIY, who heard it at Mr. Quad's place, said it was very good, very smooth, but they would not say it is their top choice out of all the amps they have tried. So I guess the efficiency of a speaker as well as taste is really important. So let's talk about why I like this amp and how it sounds. The reason I love this amp is because it has a buttery smooth mid-range. Now I don't remember ever describing another tube amp's mid-range as buttery smooth. I know this term has been used to death by everyone, but if I am not wrong, I rarely ever use it. I think part of the reason is because I use like older Mcintosh as my reference, and those are buttery smooth. Modern amps for me rarely have a buttery smooth mid-range. For this Synthesis A40, I don't know, is it because it uses KD66 tubes or because it has a custom designed transformer? The mid-range, man, is so liquid, soft, and smooth that it melts my heart. You got that? It melts my heart. You see, what triggers emotions when we listen to a system is different for all of us. I know, because I ask that question to most audiophiles I meet. For some people, just the lyrics is enough. No need fancy system. For others, it is the realism of the soundstage, having that feeling that the singer is in your room, that gives the emotional connection. Now, for me specifically, it is when the mid-range is buttery smooth, no hard edges, fluid, sweet. It's like the singer is whispering at you instead of like shouting at you. That is what moves me. Next, the overall presentation is warm. It's like one of those, like Ron from New Record Day would say, warm milk and cookies level kind of warmth. The bass, you know, one of the characteristics I like about tube amps, and this is where it differs from most solid state amp, is bass is round. The bass on the A40 is mind-blowing strong, deep, full, and round. Not something I expect from a 30 watt amp. No EL34 tube amps I've tried have low-end extension this like strong, and most KT88 amps I've tried bass does not sound this full. Now the KT88 tubes amps can be more dynamic, but even then it depends on which one. By the way, if you compare it to my Class D Purifi amp with an aftermarket neurochrome input buffer I have here, the A40 bass feels like Mike Tyson. The punch is strong and big, while the Purifi Class D amp is like Bruce Lee, very precise and tight. Two different presentations, both equally impressive. I just happen to be in the camp I prefer a fuller bass. Oh, by the way, if you want to do a DIY Purifi Class D amp, get the neurochrome input buffer. The performance difference is significant, especially in the bass region. Back to the A40. Soundstage with the A40 is fantastic, airy, deep, and wide. When paired with the Qacoustics Concept 500, the depth of the soundstage is outstanding. Way deeper soundstage than my other speakers. Now, for those of you who have seen my Concept 500 video, you know that soundstage is the strength of those speakers, and the A40 can really showcase it. By the way, the first time I ever power up the A40, okay, was after spending a few days with the Willsenton A12. That's like a $500 tube amp. My first 3-second reaction was, and I wasn't even sitting down in the sweet spot, was I felt there's a black space forming around the singer with the A40. The separation of the singer from the rest of the instrument was really apparent when compared to the A12. That was when I said to myself, damn it man, you do get what you pay for. Next, let's talk about top-end extension. Now, usually I value detail and sharpness in a system as like the main thing. And I guess I'm getting old and my taste has changed. So I no longer put that on the top of my list. I would describe the presentation of the A40 as non-aggressive and balanced. Very musical and not analytical. The way I define musical, okay, such an overused word, right, musical, is that when I listen to a system, it is not so detailed that it keeps catching my attention. Detail is not a focus, but rather part of the presentation. So I don't end up continuously analyzing the song. For example, when a system is very analytical, I will keep looking forward to specific details inside the song, like the ding of a triangle at 2 minutes and 34 seconds into the song. The problem is I don't get emotionally involved with the song since I'm so busy listening for stuff like that, right? The cough of the singer at 3 minutes 45 seconds, or the slight vibration of the cello at the end of the song. You get my point. You see, this Japanese Leben CS-300xs tube amp I have here, this is ultra detail. You can hear the pin dropping without any effort, and you will spend a lot of your listening time on that. By the way, calling a gear analytical is not a bad thing. It's just my definition, and you can define analytical and musical any way you like. The A40, you will not notice the top-end detail. At one point during my time with the A40, I remember I had to stop and shift my attention to listen specifically at the top-end extension. It's just that because I was not assaulted by details, that I was not paying attention to it. It's very pleasant, smooth, yet you have all the information and not feel like there's a veil in front of your tweeters. If you A/B test this against today's modern audiophile amps, you'll notice that this thing does not sound like today's amp, which I would call precision machines, ultra and hyper detail. Once again, nothing wrong with that, depends what you want. So, in short, I like it because it is musical, buttery smooth mid-range that moves my heart, sometimes almost to the point of tears. Very dangerous if you listen to sad songs. Don't do it when there are people around you. Now, regarding tube rolling, I did get my hands on one of the most highly regarded KD66 on the market. They are GEC tubes, and on eBay, man, they go for a ridiculous $1,000 for 4. But lucky, Mr. Kanta is crazy about tubes, so he buys all the rare tubes he can find. And my impression was, yeah, it was more transparent. It's hard to A/B test tubes with this amp because by the time it warms up, like 30 minutes, you forgot how the original tubes sound. Now, I personally think the original tubes are good enough already. Not surprising because according to Synthesis website, all tubes are carefully selected and match with the help of a fully computer monitor machine. So usually first thing I do when I get a tube amp is to burn money and get tubes for it. But I think your wallet is safe in this case. So let's wrap it up. And you know, instead of a summary, let's have an audiophile discussion, okay? Buttery smoothness is the main strength of this amp, but smoothness is not for everyone, okay? For example, Mr. Vintage. I call him that because he only plays with vintage gear these days. He is not a big fan of overly smooth systems because he likes texture, especially in the mid-range. He values realism over, can I say, euphonic presentation. As I always said, human voice is not buttery smooth. I personally like color in my presentation because my philosophy is what I'm trying to create in my listening room is a performance that is pleasing to my ears as opposed to what the artist intended, whatever that means. That is why I have no problem using tone control to achieve the sound I like. And as I always said, I will put a microwave in my system if I have to, just to get the sound I want. Now, the A40 is my kind of sound. It is what I'm looking for in a system, and yeah, I'll be sad when it leaves my house. If you ever can listen to this amp, since they sell it in the stores, you should. Some of you are probably wondering, maybe there is a budget solution out there that uses KT66 and can achieve somewhat similar buttery smooth mid-range as these? Maybe. If you know of any, put in the comment section, because now, man, I'm only interested in KT66 tubes. Alright, let's end this with a story, okay? The other day I was telling a friend of mine that this is my favorite amp. And when he heard the price, his first reaction was, oh, the Ferraris of amps. I would say no. It's more like, you know, all the modern amps, they're like Kawasaki motorcycles. Sleek and aerodynamic design, high performance that can go from 0 to 60 in 0.9 seconds, and can corner like it's on rails. This synthesis is more like a Harley Davidson, okay? Both Kawasaki and Harley will bring a big smile to your face, but for different reasons. Yeah, that's how I would describe it. So with that said, I'll see you guys next time.